Strike Fighter Squadron 201.
Contact.
We are an elite company of men and women, military officers, fighter pilots with extensive business experience. We work with top global companies, outstanding organizations. We teach the process, disciplines, and techniques that allowed us to fly fighters in a very challenging and dynamic environment. And we apply them to your world. Today isn't about shooting down airplanes, not about dropping bombs. It's about a process that an elite group of individuals, a high-performing organization, used to execute.
It is being part of a team, part of a sales force that is focused on winning. It's all about excellence. You want to have that culture where everybody you're working with, everybody you're surrounded by, is focused on winning and focused on being the best that you guys can be.
I want to bring you into my world, into my front office, the cockpit of a $40 million fighter aircraft. Do you know of any other industrial work site that's more dangerous than the carrier? You have a vessel that contains 5,000 people. Diverse backgrounds, diverse experience. They grew up all over the world in an environment that is constantly changing, challenging, hostile, and I would tell you takes an unbelievable amount of collaboration. How do you think they do it? They do it through a process, a very deliberate process. And that's what we're going to share with you this morning.
Standard operating procedures. If you don't have them developed, work on developing them. And why is that? Because then as you talk to each other across the organization, you're all working in that standard way. You're all working, generally speaking, with the same methods, and you have the same vocabulary and the same expectations of each other.
The process that I'm going to share with you was used the first time to build the air campaign for Desert Storm back in 1990-91, right? Conflict that I flew 40 missions in. And I think that process worked pretty good, along with the other tactical processes that Vixie and Cruiser will share with you, because I'm still standing here.
I think your energy is the greatest part about the program. For an afternoon session, you just energized and invigorated the whole operation.
But if I tie a rope to the end of each one of those arrows, and as we execute over time, where does the organization go? It goes nowhere. The organization does not move. It doesn't get any better. And why? It's not that they're not well-intentioned. It's that the individuals on their team, their individual execution is not focused on something off in the future that represents greater value.
We build strategies to win the peace in a military context and a geopolitical context. In a business context, we build strategies to increase the value of the enterprise. That's it. Why else would you do anything else?
Here's our planning model that we use, and it's a 6-step planning process. It starts with, what is the situation? What is it that we're trying to do? When our team is out executing, they need to know exactly what they're responsible for, and at the end, what it should look like, so that when we're debriefing, there's no argument. So after we prepare, it's now time to execute. The execution, ladies and gentlemen, should be boring. If the execution is boring, we did well in our preparation. And all we have to do then is rely on our training. And if we have training deficiencies, they're going to come out when we talk about it in the debrief. We're going to rely on our experience. We're going to adhere to the plan. But here's the best part, and the part that most people really don't understand, is because Mike has told us what it's supposed to look like when the smoke clears, John and I are out flying fighters together, and we have to tweak the plan, use a little initiative. We can do that because we know what it's supposed to look like.
I don't need perfection here, but what I do need is I need the diversity of thought that exists in my organization to be focused in a certain path. It's got to have a for the sake of what. We walk around the organization for the sake of what? Down to that kid or that young lady sweeping the shop floor. Why are they doing what they're doing?
Attention to detail. Let's take a look at the middle guy in the green float coat there. Let's imagine that he left home with those same habits and decided, I don't really feel like tying my shoelaces today. Doesn't really matter. No one's looking at him. My pants are baggy. They can't see him. Nobody will ever know. Well, I'll tell you what, that guy's walking on the flight deck and he trips on those, it doesn't really matter, shoelaces that are untied, and he gets a little too close to the airplane. That is called a game changer. His day will be fundamentally different. And it's attention to detail. It's paying attention to those little things that actually matter.
In our world, every single time we execute, we go to a room or we sit down as a team and we talk about what worked and what didn't. The things that worked, we want to make sure they worked for a reason. The things that didn't work, we want to figure out why.
After every flight, the team also goes through a critical debriefing process, which they consider as important as the actual flight itself. They hash out what worked, what didn't, and no punches are pulled.
The key is you will get insights and lessons learned so that you can beat your competition, you can beat anybody in your area, in your sector. We talked about the alignment of the arrows. After every debrief, it tweaks those arrows just a little bit more. In a lot of organizations, blame is epidemic. It's not my fault, it's his fault, it's her fault, it's their fault. If you sit in a room in a nameless, rankless environment in a debrief, that epidemic blame piece will go out the window. We have a saying, and it goes like this: it's not who's right, it's what's right. If you can sit down with that mentality as you debrief, even if it's just one-on-one, a couple individuals, it's key.
For a very short time, we task shed those things that are not necessary to getting done what we need to do. So by the time we get down to 200 feet and we're going 500 knots, we are down to pretty much just flying. We know what we're going to do, we know how we're going to get there, we talk by exception, and we're doing nothing else.
What happens once you understand the routine? Once you memorize it, you just do it. There's no thinking. I want people to think. I want leaders to be able to think. Because you're the folks that figure out the data to manage in uncertainty. Hope is not a strategy. Not one. If you walk around your organization and I hope, and you're using, hey boy, I hope this gets this, or I hope that, or I hope this, I would encourage you, change your vocabulary right now. Focus your vocabulary on where you're going to be 3 years from now, 5 years from now, and get hope out of the language.
We help corporate leaders build high-performance cultures that adapt quickly and create results. We do this through keynotes, single and multi-day workshops, and programs that provide participants with hands-on application of our processes and concepts that they can then go back and apply back in their business world.
Your team is going to walk away empowered, motivated, and armed with the tools necessary to drive improved execution in your organization.